All right, bro, we're fucking doing it. We're
All
fucking
right,
live. We're
man.
back at it.
What's good, everybody? We are releasing a little bit later this week. We had the Super Bowl going on, Super Bowl weekend. We felt like it would just make a lot more sense to do things afterwards. But we're diving in today. It looks like we're talking about social media,
Yes, sir.
FOMO, and how we prioritize things. Is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah, FOMO, the FOMO culture and how to combat it, prioritizing what matters through our chaotic modern schedule. Everyone's
I
got
like this, man. I really like that
15.
you brought up the social media thing when I asked you about
Yeah.
topics for this week. I really like that. I feel like it can be kind of a controversial topic for a lot of people because I think a lot of people really like it, but I also think some people are just like addicted to it, and then some people like me don't like it. Um, I'm really curious how you feel about social media. I mean, I know you and I have a little bit similar viewpoints on it, but I also know that you're on it and you like to use it, especially to like use it as like a platform for yourself. But yeah, if you want to get into that,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be the first to say on that topic of what you said, like addicted. I'm addicted, bro. Not because like I
damn,
want to be, but just because like social media gets its hooks in you just so fucking easy. Like yesterday when I was watching the Super Bowl, when it would go to commercial, I just randomly, like without thinking, grab my phone and just go on like Instagram or something. And I'm not even thinking; it's just second nature, and that's clear sign of addiction. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not saying I want to be addicted, but it is the way it is. I try to be mindful of it. I know there's apps out there like Opal. I don't know if you ever heard of it to kind of help um, stop, be a barrier between going on to social media. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's still positives and whatnot with it. Um, but I just think it's a big topic. I know with others, myself. I know you're not on it. Um, but that's why I thought this would be a good topic to bring up right now.
bro, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's like a bad thing. Like, I'm not one of those like doomers who's like social media is the end of the world and it's so bad for people and all these things. I'm not big on that. I don't participate personally because I don't feel like there are positive emotions generally that like I gain from it.
Yeah.
And I do think it serves a purpose like entertainment wise at times for people, but I personally don't want to engage in entertainment through the form of social media. Um, I mean, I don't even like TV very much. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really watch TV shows. I don't really watch movies very often. I like watching live sports, but and I like reading, but like I'm not huge on like the really short videos and things like on TikTok and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but with that being said, I don't think it's like a bad thing necessarily, but I do think that it's one of those things that probably most people want to should experience in like moderation rather than like full on all day every day. I remember I read this study about social media that I thought was really interesting. Uh, it's it was a really small sample size, so I don't think it's like a definitive thing at all. But I think it made sense. If I remember correctly, it was like, bro, I think it had like 20 participants or something like that. Like I remember reading through it and I was like, wow, this is really cool stuff. And it sounded really interesting and compelling and it made a lot of sense. And then at the very end, it talked about like the participant pool and it was only like 20 people. So whatever I'm about to say, take with a grain of salt, but I do think it makes sense. And that was that they talked about like these two forms of boredom and how one is like more new than the other. Um, and that's that like there's superficial boredom and then there's something called profound boredom. And superficial boredom is the form of boredom that you would experience like when you're on the bus home or like you're driving home or like you're waiting for something to happen, which is like a really common form of boredom that we all experience, right? It's just like very basic, like, oh, I'm bored. And what happens is in the past, before we had television, or mainly before we had phones that gave us gave us access to things all the time. Like you can be on your phone anywhere, basically, right? Like unless you're like hiking in a really isolated area, you just have your phone all the time now. And it used to be you had to like wait till you got home to watch TV or something, but now you can just watch TV on your phone. But anyways, my point is, the other form of boredom was profound boredom, which is what kind of boredom people used to experience, which is that like you used to be so bored for a period of time that you would basically like reflect on your life and you would like be in a bit of solitude and then eventually that would lead to like creativity and that would lead to you like being more active. Like, for example, like if you think about it from a really basic perspective of like children, like kids, when they're bored initially, right? Like you take away all their stuff, they complain a bunch, like, I'm so bored, I don't know what to do. But they don't do that for like a day straight. After like 30 minutes or an hour, they figure out something to do. Like they become creative and they might like create something, or they might like run outside and like try to do something outside, right? Like they don't just quit on life and just sit there and be bored forever. They start to like think about what else could I do out. Like if you took away a kid's phone and their TV, they probably, or like their video games and things, their electronics, they're probably going to be super bored and complain a bunch for an hour or two, but eventually they're going to like go outside and do things, or they might try making something, and they're going to come up with ways to keep themselves busy. But basically what's happening now is that people never have to do that, and they never have to like sit in solitude or in like isolation, because there's just no point in it, because they have this phone that's just full of material. It's full of content. There's just so much stuff you can do on your phone all the time. And not only that, a lot of it is like inactive. So like, for example, you can go on your phone and you could like research something really cool, or maybe like read a really interesting article that teaches you something. But most people, they just like look at a feed that's feeding them information, right? Like it's literally called feed. And what happens is people never have to like be alone and think about things or reflect, because instead they're just always being constantly entertained about really small things. But I just thought that was really interesting. So they're basically saying that like we're taking away this experience from people that was a very normal and like human thing, where people used to sit alone and they used to have to just think of things to do, and they used to have to like be creative or be active. But now you don't have to do those things. Like now, if you're sitting in your car, we have so many more options than we used to. Like it used to be whatever radio stations. Now you can just like listen to anything, podcast, whatever. When you're sitting at a bus station waiting for something, you can watch a million different videos about whatever you want. You can play games on your phone. Like it's so interactive. And I think that can be fun sometimes. And it's like this really great thing, right? Like it sucked waiting for the bus when I was a kid. But it is interesting how like you don't have to be bored anymore. And I think that there might be a negative side to that, where people, it almost feels like you don't really have to sit and think very much anymore in life. But I thought that was interesting because you brought up something about that. I forgot what it was, the exact thing, but you were basically saying something about how like now you can just like hop on your phone whenever you want. It's a bit addictive. And it really is that way. I think anytime anyone experiences a little bit of boredom, their first reaction now is to open their phone.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know there's a lot of experiments that like people would rather get shocked than be bored for like 15 minutes, or something like that, where they lock you in a room with nothing to do, just an empty room, and your phone is there or something like that, but you can only unlock your phone by getting like a shock, like tased or something. And like over 50% of the participants were willing to get the shock to grab their phone instead of going through that 15 minutes of boredom. Um, so it's pretty wild that that's kind of the way things are right now. But I mean, the other thing, the reason for like mental health, pandemic or whatever that we have going on with like anxiety, depression, whatever, is like you said that people are on their phone constantly, whether it's for work, even for work and entertainment, you're like on social media or at least on a screen. Um, and so I feel like your brain is constantly taking in information, and dopamine is constantly being put out, that now there's like a drop in like dopamine levels, and hence the anxiety and depression and all that stuff. I remember I saw um, a, f- uh, a fact or whatever where it said we in the modern age in 24 hours take in as much information as like someone like a few hundred years ago did in their entire life. So someone in 1750, in their entire life, let's say like they lived 60 years old, we take in that entire 60-year life in 24 hours of information. Like that's how much shit your brain is seeing day to day. Um, and so your brain is being not only overwhelmed with all this information, but then also all this comparison with other people. And then, the FOMO, which is our other topic we're talking about, sneaks in. And anyways, I feel like it's just a very quick and fast downward spiral if you're not careful about it. And I mean, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. There's a lot of dope opportunity with social media. I mean, we all know influencers. We all have favorite influencers who, they, are living their passion, and they make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. There's, positive causes out there. There's people who motivate you, whatever. And there's social causes, whatever it may be. So, can connect the world. I mean, there's a lot of positives. I could go on just as much about the positives as I can the negatives. But it is very, I think, important to realize the slippery slope that social media can be. Yeah, that's kind of my input on it.
One thing I will say is like one thing I notice a lot about social media, or that a reason people say they use it, is that they like to keep up with friends, which I totally
Yeah,
understand. Like I do understand that. And I'm not like saying that that's not true. But one thing I noticed when I got off social media, or I guess that I noticed when I was on social media that made me feel more comfortable getting off, was that like a lot of the stuff people post isn't really how their life's going.
yeah,
Cause like I'd be talking to friends about like, you know, how their life is and everything when we call each other, and they'll be like, oh man, I'm really struggling in this one relationship. But then like every week they're posting photos like, I love you so much, babe. Like you're the perfect person. And they look
that's
like
just
this
cheesy,
picture
bro.
perfect couple on social media. But then every time they call me, they're complaining or crying, and they're like, man, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then like it's the same thing outside of that. Like it might be like life, like maybe they're working and then maybe they make a post about how they love their job and how they're so happy they made it this far or whatever, but then like they complain about their job. I don't know. So I feel like it can be misleading too. Like people only post the highlights of their life. I know we talked about this before. I say this all the time. You can't compare your game tape to other people's highlights. And the
Yes.
only thing people are going to post on social media 90% of the time is highlights. Like they'll post some other stuff every once in a while, sure. But like 90% of the time, people are posting the highlights of their life and the things they want to show off. And then what happens is we compare our game tape to their highlights, and we're like, oh man, I'm not doing that right now, or I'm not experiencing that right now. But you know, if you compare everybody's highlights, everybody just looks like they're living their best life most of the time, but not everyone is. And I felt like when I kind of detached myself from that, I felt a lot better about myself and my life. And I didn't feel like I was keeping up with the Joneses, and I kind of could just focus on what I wanted to do. I think this is already just going straight into FOMO, right? Like now we're talking about FOMO at this point.
All right, let's
Um,
go.
yeah, but like I think that a big part of FOMO comes from like comparing yourself to other people, right? Like when you're comparing yourself to other people and what other people are doing, like maybe on social media, you have a few friends who are just like backpacking through Europe, whatever, and you're like, oh man, I want to do that. But I feel like getting away from social media, it's a bit extreme, like completely getting off it like I did. But I think at least like having some moderation where you're not constantly thinking that is probably a lot healthier, because I don't think like it's not like everybody's just traveling all the time and everybody's just living their best life all the time, right? Like you're just looking at one small thing that someone's doing at one moment in their life.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I mean, and also like during the pandemic, I think FOMO, I feel like intensified. I mean, I know everyone was locked up for a little bit, but I feel like we all had that like wanting to get out when the pandemic was over with. And then I feel like if you, for whatever reason, I mean, financially it hurt a lot of people, so the pandemic. So I feel like if you weren't able to do those things right away, or seeing your friends live your best life or whatever, um, I feel like that definitely helped out with, increasing FOMO in everyone. The tricky thing for me is I have to be on social media for like work and stuff. And also, I do it for my own personal self and my graphic design, whatever. So it's like very hard for me to like detach myself from social media as much as I do try to. Um, so so yeah, it's a slippery slope to like, not only the anxiety and depression that comes with it, but also the FOMO. And I used to be a lot worse with it when, like in my earlier 20s or mid 20s. But then when I detached, like you said, I kind of learned that it's like, I know it's all fake, the social media stuff, or like, what I'm saying? People just post their highlights, um, and kind of just more so just focused on myself, and only like everyone's at their own pace, if that makes sense. Um, like just because someone's getting theirs at 25 doesn't mean I'm not going to get mine at 32 or 35, whatever it may be. So I just learned, to lose the comparison thing. The comparison thing's a whole trap, and I feel like once you lose the comparison side of things, I feel like FOMO very quickly falls off with it.
Is
So
there
that's
a way to
definitely.
like? Is there like a concrete way to work on that? Do you think? Because like for me, for example, like like you have to be on social media for work, and also I think that completely getting off social media is a bit extreme, to be honest. Like I do it because it works well for me, and I actually enjoy my life a lot more when I don't have it. But like a lot of people like to be on social media. I think they have this experience of like where some parts aren't great and some parts are good. Do you think there's like a concrete way where someone can like kind of avoid that feeling, but also still enjoy the best parts of social media?
So,
Or is it just
hold
a
on.
double-edged sword all the time?
So say your question again, where it's
Like,
like
do you
they
think
have
there's like a
to.
concrete way to work on avoiding the feeling of like FOMO or comparing yourself to others when you're on social media, or do you think that it's just always a double-edged sword?
I mean, I think it's kind of just knowing who you are and having like a confidence in yourself, because like I said, in my early 20s, or when in my like when I was, yeah, my early 20s, whatever. I didn't really have that, which is why it was very easy for me to compare myself to every single person I saw on social media and immediately go down the FOMO trap. Now it's like I have a much more solid understanding and belief in myself and like at peace with myself, that it's like, even if I see a 25-year-old who's younger than me with a Lamborghini, even though 9 out of 10 times it's fake. But whatever. Just for examples, it's like I don't really care, because it's like I'm happy with where I'm at and I know where I'm going. So I don't really compare. The only person I'm comparing myself to is like myself, like comparing myself to who I was yesterday, last month, and today. And if I'm doing better, then I'm doing great. So I just feel like, and I don't really know how to like, yeah, just kind of understand what's important to you, where you want to go, and then just kind of move in that direction and just focus on yourself, kind of just tunnel vision on yourself. And I mean, just be happy if you do see someone, getting theirs, and even if they're ahead of you, like be happy for them. You'll get there too, just on your time, not their time. You know what I'm saying? So
I was just curious because honestly, bro, I don't even feel like I told you I got off social media because I felt like it was just kind of like
yeah,
useless to me at some point where I felt like I wasn't actually keeping up with my friends. And I'm not the kind of
yeah,
person like, bro, I don't know if you remember, but when I had social media, I barely ever posted on it. Like I barely ever had stories. I barely
yeah,
ever posted. I posted like one photo a year probably. So I was just like, at this point, I just did like I remember I did a 1 month break. And then I was just like, honestly, it's way nicer not having to like feel like I have to post and have to like keep up with people. And I just dropped it. But I've never been like the biggest FOMO person. I've never been someone who like really compared myself a lot anyways on social media and things like that. I think maybe a little bit, but it's never been like a huge thing for me. Um, I mean, this might sound kind of depressing because I feel like this is my viewpoint on stuff like this, but and I don't want people to take it that way. Like it's not really a depressing thing, but I feel like no matter what, you're just always going to miss out on things in life.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and I don't mean it like you're never going to experience anything, but like I would bet you that if you met someone who traveled the entire world, they would still have like an infinite list of things they still wanted to do and they wanted to experience. Or like when you meet people who, like for example, you might meet someone who's like, there's someone who has gone on all these crazy adventures and they've gone around the world and they've been in a bunch of like random flings, in the places they've traveled to and stuff, but then they end up longing for something consistent and they get jealous of people who are like have this consistent life where they've been with one person for 10 years and they've been working at the same job and like slowly building a life with really powerful roots, right? But then somebody who has like a deeply rooted life in one place might get jealous of someone who's traveling. Like I feel like no matter what in life, you can't just experience everything. Like our time is so limited. Like living to 100 years sounds like a long time, or 80 years or whatever, but the reality is like you just can't experience everything. Like imagine every place on earth, imagine everything there is to do, like you can't even come close to it. And I think there's a beauty in that where like you get to specifically choose the things that are very beautiful to you. Like you
yeah.
can, like I think one thing people get caught up in is they're comparing themselves to other people, but they're also like comparing themselves to people who are enjoying something that they might not even enjoy, right? Like people will be like, "Oh, I'm so jealous of this one thing this guy's doing," but then like when you think about it, you're like, "Well, if I was doing that, I wouldn't even like it that much." Like I feel like part of the beauty is that our time is limited, but we can also choose, right? Like we have the choice of what we want to do and experiencing very specific things that resonate with us. Um, but yeah, like I just feel like no matter what I do, if I spent my entire life with the goal of experiencing as much things as possible, I would still just be FOMOing about random shit. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of my mindset. And it might sound kind of depressing, but I think it's realistic.
Yeah. No, I mean, like everyone's jealous of each other. Like I think everyone has someone who's jealous of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that's a dope ass turtleneck. I could be jealous of your turtleneck. You know what I'm saying?
It's
Or
nice,
like,
bro. Got on
yeah, you have
sale,
a
man.
dope ass
Only 40
career. There's
bucks.
probably, yeah, it's like you have a dope ass career. There's probably people jealous of your career, but it's like you're always looking at like what you don't have. I feel like we kind of all have that lack mindset. So it's like you could get a mansion, you could get a Ferrari, but then you're like, why don't I have a jet? But then people are looking at you like people who drive like a Ford Fusion like me, and then I'm like, why don't I have the Ferrari? Why don't I have the mansion? It's like you're always looking at like the next level. You know what I'm saying? And there's people who are in a wheelchair looking at like someone walking. It's like, why can't I walk? So just, you know what I'm saying? It's like we're always looking what we don't have. But if you just like look around you and kind of stay in the present, it's actually you have a lot, and there's probably a ton of people who are jealous of what you currently have. And honestly, I randomly just stumbled on this. That's kind of actually how to answer that question. What helps me with my anxiety and FOMO is just like I look around me, I'm like, look how far I've come. Look at all this dope shit that if I, like I know a lot of people out there would be jealous to have what I have. Um, and I know I have it better than a lot of people around the world or whatever. So that helps me at least. But yeah, I do. I just think it's like the lack mindset that we always look at someone else, and because we don't have what that other person has, we get FOMO for whatever reason. And I know that like from personal experience, but also from hearing someone say this, it's like single people see happy couples, and uh, or yeah,
Happy
single
couples see single people.
no, yeah, and then people in a relationship see happy singles. It was actually
Yeah.
like they actually did like research or whatever on it, a scientific study, and it was like proven that like people who are in relationships, I mean, not every relationship,
Yeah, I was
but
about to
especially if
say, I
you're
was like, damn, that's really sad.
no, I'm just saying like especially if you're in an unhappy relationship, you will see happy singles around you all the time, and
Yeah.
when you're single, you'll always see happy couples. And as someone who went through both sides of that, I can agree to that. I was always like, damn, that single dude looks fucking so happy right now. I wish I was him. And now I'm single. I see happy couples all the time. And I'm just like, damn, that's a beautiful relationship they have. But it's just like, it's all superficial. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Um, so it's always just, if you don't have it, it's the lack mindset. And I don't really know where it comes from. I'm sure social media has a big um, part in that, but I wonder if like even before social media and technology, if our brains had that in us. It's like,
Oh,
damn,
of
here's a
course,
dope
bro. Of
horse.
course they
Look at
did.
his
The
dope
grass is
ass
always
wagon. Why
greener,
don't I
man.
got his fucking wagon? You know what I'm saying? So,
Bro, it's
um,
always been like that. That's a very like human thing. There's no way. People are always comparing themselves like in all of time, I feel like.
yeah,
Like there's no way people were just content a long time ago. I feel like it's just always been a thing with just who we are. I don't know if that has anything to do with survival, but it's just something that's developed over time, I think. I,
I
I
feel
also
like,
think that like what you're saying kind of goes back to what we've talked about in previous pods, like being mindful and being grateful, right? Like
yeah,
those things help a lot. Like I've been like, for example, like the things I have in my life right now were things I was like begging for 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want like
absolutely.
a really cool crib in like a cool neighborhood. I want a job I'm like really proud of that I like. Like, there's like things that I have right now that I was like begging for 4 years ago, and then now I don't even like. I'm not even like that grateful for them, and I'm just thinking about the next thing. Now I'm like, oh, I want an even better career, and now I'm like, oh, I want like
Yes,
a house in a specific neighborhood that I own. Like, it's never enough, right? So I think sometimes we
yeah,
just slow down and just be like, well, I made it this far and I'm going to keep going further. I would much rather like enjoy the moment and have a happy ride than get where I want, but be like upset the whole
yes,
time and like always move the bar. Right. So you got to like
exactly.
sit back and enjoy the ride, and then also just like have a goal that you're still working towards and moving towards. But like it sucks to like get the things you've been asking for and then not even enjoy them. Right. Like we have to find ways to enjoy those things that we've been wanting and we've accomplished.
Yeah, I honestly think like you just described like kind of the key to life. Not to sound corny or cheesy, bro, but just like,
Damn, really? Am I just
yeah,
that profound? Am I just that
bro, you're
incredible?
that profound, bro. You're Buddha out here, man. Prophet. Um, yeah, I feel like if you just aspire for goals, but you're happy and enjoying the journey, like you're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like even if you don't get there, you're just enjoying the journey. You're taking it all in. But let's be real. Like as long as you're aspiring and ambitious and work hard, you're gonna get there. It just takes time, bro. I
What
learned patience. What are you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, how do you think you can like doing those both of those things at the same time can be kind of difficult, right? Because like when you have a goal, you want to get there really badly, and it's hard to like enjoy the ride while you're doing that. I know our third topic was prioritizing anyway, so I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like, what do you think is a way to like have a goal and like enjoy things, but also like be able to prioritize things to like get there quicker or get there the way you want?
I mean, I guess we talked a lot about like goal setting recently, but and I kind of just always revert to the same thing. So I mean, kind of just, I think, organizing your day and schedule, and you just kind of like got to bring it to get to the macro. You kind of got to bring it down to the micro. So it's like, what can you do in like this second, this hour, uh, today, and like if you're just winning the day type thing, and just kind of like figuring out like what you need to do to get to where you want to go. I feel like I've repeated that so many times in the past few episodes, bro.
Bro, we don't even need to do this pod anymore. People can just listen to that on
Let's
repeat.
go. Check out the other episodes because I'm basically just saying the same thing. But yeah, and I feel like because especially with like the chaotic, modern schedule with social media, we're all on our phones texting. Everyone has like 10 texts on their phone or like email and then social media. And then you got to make plans, for work, for if you're dating with your parents, with your friends, if you have pets, like there's so much shit to do. So it's like, of course, take care of those things. But like, I don't know, just figuring out like, that's why goal setting is like so important to me, or like journaling, because that helps me learn more about myself and what really matters to me through journaling, and I can kind of pick the pieces out of those journal prompts of like what matters to me and how I can achieve them, if that makes sense. Am
Yeah.
I making sense? I feel like I'm not
Yeah, you
making
make
sense,
sense,
bro.
bro. You make sense.
um but yeah, what about you, man? You know me,
Uh, I mean, bro, something I was thinking about today when you sent me the prompts was I was like, I was thinking about what I've been prioritizing in my life recently, and I think there's a trend that I've been noticing, which is that the older I get, the more I prioritize long-term happiness and like sustainable
yeah.
happiness rather than like short-term fun. And like as a kid, the only thing you think about is like what's happening that day, right? Like when you're a kid, you just like, what can I do right now to be having fun and enjoying life, right? And then as you get older, it becomes this like mix. Like in college, it was really weird for me because I had these goals for what I wanted to do and the GPA I wanted to graduate with and a career I wanted and all these things. And then, I'd stay in the library studying till midnight. But then like once midnight hit, I wanted to like party, and then I would party, and then I would fucking wake up the next day and I'm like, oh my God, I regretted partying because now I'm like waking up at noon and I got to study again. And I'll study again. And I'll go through these like weird cycles where I'm like deciding like what I really want. Like, do I want short term fun or do I like want long term fun? And then I think once I got out, the trend continued where I started prioritizing like long term happiness. Like, what is going to make me happier in the future and make my life more sustainable rather than like just enjoying something a lot right now? But I think if you only do that, your life's boring as fuck. Like if I only prioritize long-term happiness, I feel like my life is just really boring and I'm probably just going to like you still want to have a little bit of short-term fun, right? So I think there's like a balance, but I think the balance should be like heavily swayed between it should be heavily swayed towards like long-term happiness. And I think I've started to notice that trend in my life and I think it's been making a huge difference and it's been making me feel much more like at peace. Because I don't like, for example, like there are things in life that I want, but I don't need. And right now, I feel much more comfortable like investing my money in something else because I know that in the future it'll pay off more. And I think in the past, I would have always just splurged. And I'm not doing that now. Like if I had the amount of money right now that I have saved up, like when I first got in college, I probably just would have bought like a brand new car and just like tried to ride around town all day. But now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like sit on this and make sure I invest my money properly and make sure I'm putting it in the right areas. And like I think about like emergency funds. Like I didn't think about emergency funds when I was in college. If I ran out of money, I just ran out and I just I had nothing. But now I think about those things. So I think like having that security has been nice. But at the same time, I want to have fun sometimes. So I think if you can like find a really nice balance where like, okay, I'm going to invest in my future, but also like here and there, I'm just going to have a good ass time. I think that's a great way of approaching things. And I think if you have to choose between the two, I think choosing that long term is always going to be beneficial. Cause like one thing I will say about that college experience I was talking about is like having a really fun night and waking up realizing you fucked up the rest of your week never feels good. I've never not like been like, I always woke up and was like, God damn it, I shouldn't have done that. Like every time I went to bed at 4 a.m. and woke up at like 1 p.m. and I was just hungover and I realized I had to study all of that day and usually would have to pull an all-nighter afterwards because I didn't get enough done the previous day. I always regretted it. So if you ever have to choose, I think choose the long term and then when you don't have to choose and you have an opportunity to just enjoy yourself and splurge or whatever, go ahead and do it as long as it's not getting in the way of other things. But I think like having that regret and like enjoying something in the moment only to like affect your happiness in a long-term way, I think isn't really worth it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, just bro, that comes with maturity. I feel like that's just everyone, in the early 20s. It's like if they have, you know, even just a little bit of money, especially if you come from like low income family, in your early 20s, you just don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're just gonna go have fun with it and deal with the consequences later. But now that as you mature a little bit, you realize that in the long run, you're gonna be happier than just the short term, where you might just have fun for a day or now, but it's going to like the regret is going to live with you and hurt so much more than the discipline of like waiting, uh, and pushing it out long term. But I mean, to your point, I also think, setting money and time, and even just a decent amount of money, that matches your budget or whatever to splurge or have short term fun or whatever it may be, I think does help with, being disciplined with your long-term goals, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, set aside money to go to a nice ass fucking dinner or get fucked up one night. I don't know. Like,
And
whatever,
I
whatever.
don't think it's just money either. I think it's like every aspect of life. Like even think it
Yeah,
comes down to like emotional things, right? Like
yeah,
investing your emotions into, for example, like investing into relationships aren't long lasting, like whether they're like significant others or friends and things like that. Like it used to be like I didn't really care that much. Like when I was in college or in high school, I was just friends with everybody, and I was just like people hitting me up. I'm putting in time in people, and I didn't really think about those things. But when you get older and you become busier, you realize you have this like emotional capacity, right? And you can only give so much of yourself to other people, and you kind of have to make the right decisions about that because it sucks being in a toxic relationship or a toxic friendship, or it sucks like being in something that isn't that serious and it's like emotionally draining, right? Like you start to prioritize these things. And I think like it's not even just like a money thing. It's like every aspect of life. It's time, it's emotions. Like there's so much more where you feel like you have to limit yourself and invest in the right things and choose right. So I think recently, like every aspect of my life has been like, what can I invest like my emotions in? What can I invest my time in? What can I invest my money in that's going to benefit me like long term and make my life like a more like a happier and like a sustainable way, if that makes sense. Like it's not just about this like fling or like this fun night. Like I'm kind of over that phase. Like I don't want to like splurge on something that I'm going to forget about a week later. I don't want to like just hook up with some random person at a party. Like I don't want to like invest my time into something that doesn't feel valuable to me but might feel valuable to other people, like some experience that I don't enjoy but I'm just doing it because my friend or my significant other wants to do it. Like I'm looking at life like, where can I put my time, my emotions, my money into places that are going to benefit me like long term and help me enjoy my life more long term, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, the older you get, I feel like time becomes more and more, scarce and valuable. And yeah, like, and also even your emotional, bandwidth. So, I mean, that makes total sense and I think is very important. I'm glad that you hit on that point. Because I feel like, sure, money's great and all, but let's be real, like, especially at this, I feel like time of our life where, at least speaking to like us, like late 20s, pushing our 30s, damn, we're getting fucking old. I feel like, those few really close personal relationships, um, are just crucially important to kind of the trajectory of where you're going to go. And so making sure that you're investing your time in those people or the correct people, if you don't have those people around you, I think is just really important, even more than the money, because money always comes and goes. But like, let's be real, like the happiness and fulfillment you find in life is like spent with others in the community or the tribe that's built around you. And um, I know I've been trying to like work on it a lot with, putting myself out there to make friends out here in Dallas. I've done a very poor job of it. Um, but yeah, I think, investing your time wisely in the correct people, and, you know, and also your emotions, I think, is just as important as money and whatnot. Because I mean, like I said, money comes and goes. You can always make more of it, but having those crucial personal relationships, I feel like, are few and far between.
Yeah, you got to surround yourself with the right people, and you got to surround yourself with people who prioritize the same
Like-minded.
thing.
Bro, it's like us. You know, we vibe, we bounce ideas off of each other, and you make me better. You make me think of shit that I never thought I was gonna think of on my own, and I do the same for you. And we're on a fucking podcast now, and then we're doing other shit. So just like, and it makes
Yeah,
me
no, for
better,
sure.
like personally.
I
It
feel
makes
like
me better personally. It makes us better like together. I hope I make you better,
absolutely.
with you. And so it's just like without those connections and those friendships, whatever, I think you're kind of just capping yourself.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
least that's
And
my
I think the
experience.
biggest thing I'm that we're both agreeing on here is like surrounding yourself with the right people, but also I think we're kind of talking about like waste management. Like, don't waste your energy and your time on
Yeah.
things that don't matter to you. Like, the last thing I want to do right now in my life is like spend a bunch of time with someone I don't care about, that I don't vibe with. Like, the last thing I want to do is spend a bunch of money on something that I don't actually care about, that I'm just doing to impress people. Like, don't waste things. Like, life is short. Like, you can't just waste your energy. You can't waste your emotions. You can't waste your love, like your finances. Like, these things matter. So like, don't just waste them. Spend them on things that really matter to you, that resonate with you. Spend them on people you resonate with, right? Like,
Yeah.
enjoy experiences with people you really care about. But like, I don't want to be in this stage of my life where I'm just wasting my time and energy on people or things that I don't actually care about. So I
It's
feel like
it's
we both really agree on that.
it's boundaries. I feel like we've been both making good points. We've kind of been, I'm not gonna say all over the place, a little scattered. But I think like the biggest point that we're trying to make is like
Been a rough
have
weekend, bro. It's been a rough weekend.
it's all good, bro. It's all good. Um, yeah, just have boundaries, and what Hudson was saying with like finances, emotions, and your relationships. You can set boundaries for all those areas of your life, and I think that'll definitely take out the waste and the not spending your time, money, or emotions incorrectly, so you can put them and spend them where it matters. So, um, yeah, I think that's a good way
All
to.
right, bro. We're both fucking tired. We're scattered.
Yeah,
we're close to 40
what's up,
minutes. We're
bro?
right around our goal of where we try to get. So let's fucking end the night, man. It's been a long weekend. It's been great talking today. I really appreciate it. I feel like we really got into it. We just you sent me these topics like literally 5 hours ago.
Yeah,
So
these came
I
out of
feel like we really
nowhere.
went in.
We actually tried potting over the weekend, but we were just not there. Writer's block, whatever it may be.
I mean, the Super Bowl was there, bro. We were out. Like, it is what it is.
It
So
just wasn't happening. But this came out of thin air, and I think it worked out right. I saw a lot of people kind of like thinking about this, or it was bothering them, so I thought it'd be a good topic to
for sure.
a
I mean,
popular topic to
next week
talk
we're talking
about.
about anxiety, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing why I brought it up. I was like thinking, I was like, this is also a good way to go into our next episode of anxiety, because these are all things that are kind of like root causes of anxiety. So, bros, it was a good episode.
All right, all right. So we'll catch you guys all next week. We're talking anxiety. Like, subscribe, all those things we always say. We really appreciate everybody who's listening, and I'll see you next week, bro.
All right, thanks, y'all.